What is a glass ceiling? Well, a glass ceiling is the idea that women can rise, but they sort of get stuck right there. And right there is not the president, it's sort of the vice president, right? They can get up there, but they can't really get up to the male level. There's a glass ceiling keeping them down. When Hillary was running for president, people were talking about the glass ceiling. Although in politics, there was Indira Gandhi, there was Golda Meir, there was Margaret Thatcher, there were a few. But if you look at how many prime ministers or presidents of countries there have been, you can name them on the fingers of one hand. And this is for the last, I don't know, throughout all history. And we've got 200 or 300 countries for many, many years, and you can only name 4 or 5. That's a glass ceiling. So even though a woman sometimes can get up there, we would count that as a glass ceiling. Okay? It doesn't have to be a perfect glass ceiling. By and large, women are prevented from getting to the very tippy top. Now, there are various theories as to why this should be. And the leftist theory, or the feminist theory, or the incorrect theory, is that it's due to the usual standbys, the usual thing, you know, it's a male plot, it's patriarchism or whatever. I want to offer a very different theory. But in order to introduce this theory, I now have to talk about a thing called sociobiology, sometimes called evolutionary psychology by wimps who refuse to call it by its original name because it's politically incorrect, but it means the same thing. Okay, let's talk a little bit about sociobiology. What's going on here? Sociobiology is the theory that we are the way we are now because of what it took to survive 1 million years ago when we were in caves or in trees. That's the theory. If something kept us alive as in the trees or in the caves 1 million years ago, then the people who did that could leave progeny, and they're our grandparents, and that's why we are the way we are. Let me give you an example. We are the species that doesn't like babies crying and loves babies smiling. I mean, a lot of advertisements pull at our heartstrings because, you know, you see a baby smiling, oh, isn't that cute? You see a baby crying, you don't really like that. Now, we're not talking about a few sociopaths, but the average person just doesn't like babies crying and loves babies smiling. And isn't that cute? You know, that bit. Well, suppose there were 2 species back then 1 million years ago in the trees or in the caves, and they were exactly alike. Ceteris paribus, other things equal, exactly alike. They had the same opposable thumb, they had the same brain capacity, they had the same speed, they had the same ability to hunt, to evade predators. Everything was the same, except that group didn't give a rat's rear end about babies, and we did. Now, which group is more likely to survive and prosper and continue the gene pool down into the present day? Obviously, this is a no-brainer. If you don't care about babies, if you don't care whether they cry or not, you're not going to take care of them and you're not going to survive. Does everyone see that? Let me give you another one. How many people here are afraid of snakes? What did Indiana Jones do in that movie where they were guarding the treasure? They had snakes all around, right? How many people here are afraid of bathtubs? Nobody. Milton Friedman, by the way, was killed by a bathtub. He was. He was 93 and he slipped in the bathtub and he hit his head on the side of the bathtub, and when they took him to the hospital, he passed away. Bathtubs kill many, 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 many more people nowadays than snakes. And yet we're all afraid of snakes and not bathtubs. Why? According to sociobiology, back then there were no bathtubs, so you weren't selected for fear of bathtubs. It had no survival value. But you were selected for fear of snakes. If you didn't fear snakes, you're not going to leave as many progeny around as people who did fear snakes. That's why we fear snakes. Because our grandparents, great-great-great-grandparents to the nth degree, snake fearing was a survival thing way back then, whereas bathtub fearing wasn't. So we're hardwired to fear snakes, not bathtubs. Now let's talk about Katrina. In the aftermath of Katrina, the prices of flashlight batteries, most of you were there. Flashlight batteries, gasoline, water, milk, orange juice rose through the roof. Rose through the roof. Why? Because, supply shifted to the left and demand, supply shifted to the left. There was very little of it. Prices rose. Governor Blanco said, this is price gouging, and we're going to put the price gougers in jail, and everyone was applauding. Yay, yay, put them in jail. Why is this? You see, we as economics students all know that what the function of a higher price is like a call for help in the wilderness. When the price rises, there are two motives that people have to come and ship things toward New Orleans. One is benevolence, but you can only rely on benevolence so far. Benevolence is limited. The other one is self-interest, and Adam Smith had a lot to say about self-interest in The Invisible Hand. Well, a high price means high profits, and people now have not only a benevolent incentive, but a profit incentive to bring stuff from Tennessee and Alaska or wherever it is, Mexico, bring it here to make the profits. And as they bring it here, the price comes down. So what the price is sort of like a signaling device. But we're not hardwired to appreciate that. There was none of this market stuff a million years ago. A million years ago, the only way we could help each other was explicitly. You're sick this week, I'll help you. I'm sick next week, you help me. Right? People who didn't do that didn't get self-selected to live. So we don't need good Samaritan laws. If we see someone drowning or by the road, we help them. The natural inclination is to help, as shown by the fact that there are still people coming down here to New Orleans to help us, volunteers to fix our houses and stuff. We all, except for a few sociopaths, and even the sociopaths, I don't much like Hitler and Stalin. They were bad guys. But the way I sort of come to grips with them is I say, maybe their genes were necessary to keep the human race alive a million years ago, because you need real vicious people to deal with the lions and the tigers then. I don't know if it helps you, but somehow it helps me reconcile the fact that we have mass murderers and rapists and other bad guys out there. Maybe it's sociobiological. They say to understand is to forgive. Well, maybe to understand is to not let it bother us so much that there are bad people out there. I don't know if that helps, and it's a little off the point. Let me get back to sociobiology. Another example. Take this feminist nonsense where they talk about, Amazons. The Amazon women, they were tough, they were ready to kick butt, and, Suppose there was another group, just like us, same opposable thumbs, same head space, same brain, same ability in every which way, only they were Amazons, and we were patriarchs. This is why we have patriarchy, not matriarchy. They were matriarchs. Well, what does a matriarch do? In the matriarch tribe, what the women do is they go out and hunt. And when the saber-toothed tiger comes a-calling at the cave, it's the women that come out and meet him, and the men stay in the back of the cave where it's safer. Now let me tell you a little bit about the birds and the bees. The farmer keeps 1 bull and 50 cows. He doesn't keep 50 bulls and 1 cow. Why? Because 1 bull can do the business. You don't need the other 49. The other 49 are good cannon fodder, but you don't really need them. Look, in World War II, Germany and Russia kicked the crap out of each other. At the end of that war, there were hardly any men between the ages, 15 and 60, who were around and capable of doing the business. And yet the next generation is as if they never disappeared. Imagine if the war was fought by women, and now there was no woman between the age of 15 and 40 alive. Would there be a next generation in Germany and Russia? No. Women or female cows are the limitation on biology, not men. Men are good cannon fodder. We're not needed that much. Women are the precious commodity, biologically speaking. So if you had this tribe that were matriarchs and Amazons and the women were fighting, well, do you think they're going to last? No. If the women, just like the Germany and the Russia case where the women fought, this other tribe would not exist. The reason we're patriarchal is because we're descended from a bunch of people who sent the cannon fodder men out to fight and do the hunting, which was more dangerous than the berry picking. Okay, I've now introduced sociobiology. I now want to introduce something else, and a lot of people are going to boo. It's called the normal curve. And remember, at the beginning of my talk, I said, if you can't talk about these things, how can we solve any problems? So please bear with me. Don't boo too harshly. I'm going to use a normal curve, and here are two normal curves. The top one is men. The bottom one... Wait, do I have that? The top one is men, and the bottom one is women. This is my freehand drawing of it. Here is a real one, an honest, a good, actual bell curve. But what it shows is that, let me put it this way because I think you can illustrate it more easily, that women are God's or nature's or biology's insurance policy. They're all clumped toward the middle, whereas men are God or nature or whoever you believe is responsible for this stuff, crapshoot. The women are all bunched toward the middle. The men are all over the lot. Now, let's look at this end A and B. If you were to go to mental institutions, who would you find in mental institutions? Virtually all men. Namely, at that many standard deviations below the mean, where mental institution types hang out, virtually all men. Oh yeah, there's a few Lizzie Bordens. There might be one or two crazy women, but most of them, pardon to Thomas Oz, my buddy, most people in mental institutions are men. If you look at homeless people, yes, there's a woman who's homeless, but it's virtually all men. If you look in prisons, you go to the prison. My colleague Dan D'Amico is an expert in the economics of prisons. He can attest that virtually all prisoners are men. Oh, there's a few women, but 95, 98% of all inmates are men. If you go to the graveyard, okay, well, there it'll even out. But if you go to the graveyard and look at people who died before their time, say 40 years or younger, all men. Virtually all men, I'm exaggerating. Well, look, if we're going to have a normal curve, which is symmetrical, and you have a preponderance of men at A and women at B, well, then you have to have the same preponderance of men at C and women at D. Namely, out there on the right tail. The men also have to outnumber the women. If you look at Nobel Prize winners, except in wussy areas like poetry, where they'll give it based on God knows what, the award. But if you look at math or economics or medicine or biology or chemistry or the Fields Medal in math, it's all men. Because when you get into 3 and 4 standard deviations above the mean, there are no women. Virtually. Virtually no women. In chess, grandmasters, it used to be, I follow chess, I play it a little bit. I'm a little bit better than a wood pusher. I have an 1800 rating, which is sort of pathetic, but at least I know the moves. It used to be that out of the 500 top chess grandmasters, there was one woman. Then came the Polgar sisters, P-O-L-G-A-R. These were phenomenal women. There were 3 Hungarian women. And the worst of them was ranked 300, and the next one was ranked 200, and the best one, Judith Polgar, was ranked like 35th. And this was amazing, because before that, there was never any chess grandmaster. Now, chess doesn't take any upper body strength. But when you're talking 4 standard deviations above the mean, or 3 standard deviations above the mean, you're going to get a Polgar sister every once in a rare while. That's why we have a glass ceiling. Now, there are sociobiological reasons why it has to be this way and it can't be the other way. Suppose it were the other way. Suppose that it was the females that were God's crapshoot and the males were all toward the middle. Well then, the people at B are incapable of bearing children. They're too busy being the long historical equivalents of people being in the jails or in the mental institutions or that. Again, if there were 2 societies equally able in every other way, only one was ours and the other was this other society where the bell curves were inverted, we'd beat them out. That's why we're here, because we beat them out, if ever there were any. This is sociobiological theory. So, again, The fact that, oh, here's one more I forgot to give. I must do this. Here's this thing from USA Today, and it goes 40-0. 5 actresses face down the big 40. This is 3 or 4 years ago. We're talking about Meg Ryan, Susan Sarandon, Julia Roberts, Naomi Watts, Halle Berry, Catherine Zeta-Jones. And what it says is, Nicole, Naomi, Catherine, Halle, and Julia could force Hollywood to grow up. And what does this mean? What this means is that when a woman turns 40 or 45, she no longer gets the ingenue roles. She no longer gets the role of sex goddess or whatever. Now she gets the role of mother, right? Or big sister or something like that. Why is this? Is this Hollywood sexism? Let's go back to sociobiology. Suppose that there were 2 societies, one like ours, where you look at a 20-year-old girl and say, whoop-de-doo. Most guys do that. I hate to clue you in, but that's what they do. That's our society. But in this other society, they see a 65-year-old woman, they say, oh, wow, got to get that 65-year-old woman. Oh, here's a 20-year-old, oh, not ripe yet. Now, what prognostication do you people have for such a society? They're not going to have many babies, right? Because getting back to the birds and the bees, when you're over 40, you can't have kids anymore. And societies that revere the sexuality of women that are 50 and 60, look, they look pretty good to me. I'm 67. These women are 45. They look pretty good. But a society based on that will not survive. Our society beat them. Let me give you one more example. There was this case where 2 actors, very, very good-looking actors, but not famous, actors as good-looking as George Clooney, Tom Cruise, and Robert Pattinson. I don't know who these people are, but somebody said that they're the sex role models. On the one hand, and Britney Spears, Paris Hilton, and my favorite Marilyn Monroe, which dates me a little bit. 2 very good-looking actors, a male actor and a female actor. They were given the same script and let loose on a college campus, and the script was, they would each go up to a member of the opposite sex, and they'd say, hey, I've got this motel room over there. How'd you like to spend 2 hours with me doing what comes naturally? Guess what the results were? The woman got about 98% yeses. The man got 2 or 3. Why is this? Well, sociobiology. Women have only got eggs from age, I don't know, 14 to 38 or so, times 12 is a couple hundred eggs. Men have got a lot more sperm than that. Men are much more willing to give them out indiscriminately, to share them because they're cheaper, because you've got a lot more chances at life than women do. Just biology. This sociobiology explains a lot of male-female interactions. It's based on biology. It's not based on capitalism or anything like that. It applies in every culture. I mean, in the communist culture, I'm sure that the 50-year-old women were not the sex goddesses.